How's it going, NBA fans? It's your boy Mike here, and we are getting very, very close to being halfway through the 2021 NBA season. And for the most part, especially in the Western Conference, the teams who are at the top have really stood out. They have really separated themselves from the rest of the pack. And those teams are, of course, the Jazz and the two Los Angeles teams, the Lakers and the Clippers. However, there is one team who has quietly been really dang good this year, and that is the Phoenix Suns. And I'm actually making this video because a few days ago, a friend of mine sent me a message, and he said, low-key, and he said, low-key, don't make fun of me of this, but the Suns might be dark horse title contenders. And I'm going to be honest, Gideon, when you sent me that message, I just laughed. I laughed straight up. I was like, really? Like, really, the Suns? Like, come on. They're a playoff team for sure. They're a tough playoff team for sure. But title contenders? Come on now. I think you're giving them a little more credit than they deserve. But looking at it deeper, maybe my boy wasn't so far off. So today, I'm going to look at the Phoenix Suns and tell you what I think of them. Is this team a legitimate contender to make it to the finals and maybe even win the NBA title? So looking at the Suns right now, they are fourth in the Western Conference, 21-11, and while that's pretty impressive on its own, the Western Conference has been ridiculous this year. Specifically, the Clippers and especially the Jazz have been insanely good this season, and if the Suns were to be in the Eastern Conference, they would actually be the number 2 seed and only one game behind the Philadelphia 76ers, who are currently the 1 seed. The Suns have been that good, and if you look at their ratings, it makes sense why. The Suns are currently the 7th best offense and the 7th best defense in the NBA, giving them the overall 4th best net rating. This team has been killing it. And if you look a little deeper into their team stats, you can see why. This team is top 5 in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage, even though they aren't super high in attempts, simply because they play at a very low pace. I believe they're like bottom 3 in pace in the NBA. They're very high in assists, and they're very low in turnovers. This is a great passing team, and a team that does not make a lot of mistakes. And a big part of this is because Chris Paul is on the Phoenix Suns. For years, we have been hoping and praying as NBA fans that Devin Booker would get paired with another elite backcourt guard, and specifically an elite playmaker, because Devin Booker, as great as he is, and he's a decent playmaker, don't get me wrong, he's not a bad one, but this is not a dude who should be the primary playmaker on your team. That is wasting his talents. Devin Booker is a guy who should mostly be a score-first dude, and a dude getting off-ball plays from a primary playmaker, and that is exactly what Chris Paul has done. Chris Paul is averaging 17 points and 9 assists this season, and that's 9 assists with only 2 turnovers a game. Chris Paul has an underrated case for being the greatest passer in NBA history. In my opinion, I'd probably have him third behind Magic Johnson and John Stockton, but you can legitimately make the argument for Chris Paul being number 1 simply because of how ridiculously good he is at keeping the ball safe. And he passes it a lot, but he very rarely makes mistakes. It's incredible how efficient this dude is in every way imaginable on the court. He is still a very good defender. He's shooting fantastic from the field with 49% and 38% from 3. Chris Paul's just killing it. He's exactly what the Suns need. And even though I do believe Devin Booker is slightly better and should have been an all-star ahead of him, Devin Booker made it anyway because of AD, but you know what I'm saying. He should have been the All-Star selection ahead of Chris Paul. Chris Paul deserved the All-Star nod he got. At the age of 35, this man has been phenomenal. Speaking of Devin Booker, he is having the best season of his entire career. 25 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal, and he's doing this on 50% shooting and 38% shooting from the 3-point line. This has been his most efficient season, and in my opinion, his best overall season. Now, his assists are down, and he's still averaging 3 turnovers a game, but the dude still does handle the ball a lot, and he is a relatively good passer, but part of the reason he's doing so well is because there is finally, like I said, someone getting him the ball. Someone playmaking for Devin Booker for once and getting my man some open shots, which is letting his efficiency go way up because he's not having to do anymore what Luka Doncic is currently having to do in the Mavericks, where he creates everything for himself. Luka is another guy who would be amazing to pair with a Chris Paul-esque player. He needs a playmaker. Yeah, he's a great playmaker on his own, but he needs to play with another one. It's another reason I'd love for the Sixers to get Kyle Lowry, because you can never have too many playmakers on the team. Devin Booker has been flourishing next to Chris Paul. He has been fantastic. And the third best player on this team should be Deandre Ayton. You know, he was the number one pick a few years ago. He's averaging 14 and 12, which are decent enough numbers, but he averages more turnovers than assists, and his field goal percentage, 59% from the field, is very nice, but he only takes 10 field goal attempts a game, and he only takes 0.5 three-point attempts a game and makes 25% of them. DeAndre Ayton's been decent, okay? I'm not saying he's been bad, but he just hasn't quite been the guy that I believe the Suns wanted when they took him number one overall. His scoring's just not quite there. Like, I don't know. I don't watch a ton of Suns games. In fact, I watch very few, so I am not exactly qualified to say a lot about DeAndre Ayton's season, but it seems like even though his defense has improved, he's nowhere near an elite defender, certainly not for a center, and his offense just isn't that amazing. Like, he can kind of hit mid-range shots, but he hasn't been as good as like Bam Adebayo has this season, and he's great around the paint, but he just doesn't have the deep offensive game that I believe he was expected to when he was drafted. He really just needs to get a little bit better. Fortunately, Mikhail Bridges, who the Sixers fucking traded for Zaire Smith for some reason, I'm going to be salty about that. I might be saltier about the Mikhail Bridges-Zaire Smith trade than I am about the fact that we took Markelle Fultz instead of Jason Tatum. But nevertheless, Mikhail Bridges has been incredible this season. He's currently averaging 14, 5, and 2, along with a steal and a block on 52% from the field and 42% from 3. Now, he doesn't attempt a massive amount of shots, but he attempts a decent enough amount, and he really gets his points. He's a great third to fourth scoring option on this team, depending on, whether you take him over DeAndre Ayton or not. The dude's just great. He's not a great playmaker by any means, but he's okay, and his defense has been phenomenal. This dude has really looked kind of like Robert Covington back on the Sixers. He's just a long, switchable defender. He's got fast hands. The man is he's the perfect modern 3-and-D player. He really is. He's basically a better Danny Green, which is saying a lot because Danny Green used to be really good. Mikhail Bridges has been perfect. He is the perfect player for every single team in the NBA right now. Anyone would want him on their squad. He's only 24, and if I'm the Phoenix Suns, I am paying whatever he wants to re-sign him with that team because the dude is killing it. Mikhail Bridges is a beast, okay? God, I wish he was on the Sixers. But I'm not going to cry anymore about it today because we got more people to talk about. Then, outside of the main four guys, there are a whole lot of other players contributing to this roster. Jay Crowder has been a very solid player. He plays a little bit of 4, a little bit of the backup 5. He's been decent. Same thing with Frank Kaminsky. Both players are shooting relatively well. Well, Jay Crowder actually isn't shooting well, but Frank Kaminsky has been shooting very well. Very weirdly, the dude is shooting 42% from 3 on more than 2 attempts a game. What the hell? That's super strange, but it's working out well for the Suns. They've even played him at some power forward. Speaking of power forward, Dario Saric, in the few games he has played and been healthy, has been pretty good. 46% from the field, he's averaging 11 points, 94% from the free throw line. The dude's just been, he does this Dario Saric thing. He's a very weird player where he's not really, he just doesn't have a clear role in the NBA because he's not a great defender, and he's not, great at anything on offense, but he's pretty decent at a lot of things. He's a weird player, but the Suns have been using him pretty well, and I liked him on the Sixers, so I'm just saying I'm happy that he's doing well here. Cameron Johnson has been fantastic for the Phoenix Suns so far. Also 11 points, 4 rebounds and an assist. He's playing relatively good defense. He's shooting 38% from 3 on 6 attempts a game. Dude's just been real solid. Cam Johnson has been good. The other Cameron on this team, Cameron Payne, has also been very good. He's missed about 10 games this season, but when he has played, he's averaging 7 points and 4 assists. Decent enough shooting numbers with 41% from 3 and 48% from the field. Just another real solid role player. Then they got a couple other guys who get, sparse minutes here and there. Etuan Moore, Abdel Nadir, Langston Galloway. This is a deep team with a lot of usable NBA talent on it. It's really incredible how good this team is. Now, the thing that stands out to me, and is the big question for me about them being title contenders, is their star power. They don't have a superstar. Chris Paul is not the guy he once was, even though he is very good, okay? He is not the guy he once was. Devin Booker is a very good player, but there are a lot of questions about him. He's never been to the postseason before. We've got to see how he holds up against a postseason defense, and I would say he's a fringe top 20 player in the NBA, but he is definitely not top 15 and definitely not a superstar. He's still big defensive liability in my opinion. Deandre Ayton is debatably a defensive liability against the bigs of the Western Conference, such as Nikola Jokic and Anthony Davis, and even Rudy Gobert to an extent, who has been very good on that end of this year, or I should say very good in general this year. Chris Paul, the man's old. He's 35. He's been playing great, but is it going to hold up to the playoffs? We're only halfway through the season. How is Chris Paul going to look in another 40 games from now? I don't know. We got to wait and see. Mikhail Bridges, I believe in, but you got other guys. Jay Crowder has been a bad shooter, and they depend on him a lot. Is Frank Kaminsky going to keep shooting this well? Is Dario Saric going to fall off again? He's been up and down. Can they trust young guys like Cameron Payne and Cameron Johnson? This team just has a lot of questions, and so even though I would love to believe in them, because I do really like this Phoenix Suns team, I just gotta say that I do not believe they are contenders. I think they have a good chance to make the second round and be a very tough playoff opponent for either the Jazz or one of the LA teams. However, I can't honestly say that I can see this team making the Western Conference Finals, and I would not be surprised if they end up underperforming in the first round and they lose to a team like the Nuggets and do not make the second round. This is a team with a whole lot of talent, but they just don't have that one superstar to carry them, and they have a decent amount of questions for the postseason, considering Chris Paul is the only guy on this team with real postseason experience, at least anybody in the main rotation. So that is my opinion on the Phoenix Suns, y'all. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.